Hello and welcome to the information session of the Crossing Latinidades Humanities Research Initiative at the University of Illinois at Chicago. The initiative is funded by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation and is part of the consortium of the 16 Research One Hispanic Serving institutions. My name is Olga Herrera and I'm the director of the Humanities Initiative. For today's information session, we have our principal investigators, Amalia Pallares, who is the Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Engagement, and María de los Ángeles Torres, Nena, who is the LAS Distinguished Professor of Latin American and Latino Studies at the University of Illinois at Chicago. They will be discussing our signature initiatives, the cross-institutional research working groups, grant competition, and the Predoctoral Summer Institute in Latino Methodologies and Theories. Also today with us is our dear colleague, Cynthia Brito, our research assistant. So we encourage you during the presentation to use the chat feature to ask our speakers your questions. There will be time during the program devoted to answering these questions. So now I'm very pleased to pass it along to Nena, who will start the presentation today.
Welcome, everyone. On behalf, I think, of our program and the University of Illinois and the consortium, we're really looking forward to spending time with you, talking through some of the initiatives that we will be funding during the year. And I have a couple of PowerPoint slides. If we could have the first one up. Great. Okay. So I think that as you will see, there are mainly three components to this project. One is the research that I will be talking about. The other is the Summer Institute and graduate student training that Amalia will be talking about. And then there is also a portal. Several years ago, we started talking about how we could scale up, in a certain sense, the work that the various Hispanic serving institutions that were also R1 could do together. And we received a small grant from the Mellon Foundation, an officer's grant, to start planning that. And through that year, we were able to bring together the chancellors of the 16. There are 16 of us right now, and a couple in upcoming, but 16 universities that are Hispanic serving and also Carnegie One. They are all public, okay? I think that does not come as a surprise to any of us. The commitment is there. And I think the commitment to both Latino students as well as to research gives us an opportunity to move the field forward if we work together. So the idea of this research initiative was that looking back at the field of Latino studies, particularly Latino humanities studies, we have a lot of good work that has been done locally. We have a lot of good work that has also included the home countries of our regions from a transnational perspective. What we really have never had is an opportunity to institutionally and structurally have the resources to work through comparative basis on a regional, from region to region. I think it's an exciting time to be able to do that. And it is also something that we hope will take the field forward. To that extent, specifically this particular project of this grant is that we will be awarding 10 research working groups a certain amount of money. The idea is that these are going to be based in Latino humanities, comparative Latino humanities, and each one will be awarded $310,000. Part of this is earmarked for research, but the rest, as you see, will also be that these research working groups will not only bring together junior and senior scholars, but they will be training grounds for the graduate students that will be coming through the Summer Institute that Amalia will be speaking about. And so the research working groups will be for 2 years. We really felt strongly that you need more than just 1 year to actually pull together a meaningful and substantive research project. And so it will run year 2 and 3 of the 3-year grant that we have. Each working group will have 3 research assistants and year 1 and another 3. So in the life of every one of these 10 groups, there will be 6 graduate students who will get an opportunity to work with researchers throughout the consortium in the actual field and in the development of projects and in the actual research and hopefully writing of this and in the dissemination. We have also obtained the commitment of your universities that there will be a 1-course release per year for 2 years. All right, this is coming from the university. There's also summer stipends that will be given 3 per group. Now the criteria of the groups per se, I think there's another slide. Oh, okay, there's not. The criteria is basically that there will be 3 institutions need to be working together. They do need to be members of the consortium. And that will be the 3 researchers that will be coordinating the project. One needs to be a principal investigator just in terms of where the distribution of the monies will be going to. We are also trying to make sure that there is a mentoring process that occurs for faculty. So we'd like for these groups to both have early, mid-career, and senior tenure track faculty that can work together and bring along junior faculty. And as I said, there will also be the graduate students. Given the nature of the work that we do, we feel very strongly that there should also be a public component to disseminating the work that each one of these groups are doing. And obviously that will depend on the nature of the research, what that will look like. So these are, generally the broad guidelines for the research working groups. We will be having panels of experts that will be looking at the proposals as they come in. We are also including in the process a pre-proposal, which is optional, but it would be a good opportunity for those who may be interested in developing an idea and not quite sure if it's fitting exactly into the overall guidelines and into the overall project, that you could get feedback from us and from the staff. But when the actual proposals come in, so the optional is, or the optional pre-proposal, I'm sorry, will be, that deadline will be February 1st. These do not have to be long, and there'll be some more specifics on the website on what you need for that. But the actual application process, project itself will be due on April 1. And we hope to have this turned around by May 1. The submission of the materials, we have an email address here that it will go to. And the selection process, we're basically following the NEH's external review process as well. We envision that there will be several themes that come through, and some of the ones that we've brainstormed with some of the members of the advisory committee and others are here. This is not an exhaustive list. There will be others, other issues I think that will come up. This is in our imagination. These are some of the topics that are both, I think, we could call traditional Latino humanities, but others that are very specific to the work that has been developed, I think, throughout the decades in terms of Latino studies. So these are, we want to emphasize that this is a humanities project, but it's also social sciences that use humanistic approaches are also considered within the larger and broader themes here. So I think for now, I can turn it over to Amalia, and we can get to questions and answers after she finishes her presentation.
Thank you, Nina. So it's good to see everybody and see such a great attendance. Welcome to our webinar. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Summer Institute. We have a subcommittee working on the Summer Institute, and I'm very grateful for their contributions. So I do want to say that, we do have the general parameters that I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some components of it in the curriculum. But just wanted to make sure that to make you aware that this Summer Institute is really designed to help students who are in a pretty early phase and of their PhD, and also to help prepare them not only to do research in the Latino studies, humanities, comparative humanities, but also to be engaged in the RFP projects that will be funded. So the award, so it's a two-week Summer Institute that is immediately before the Latino studies for this next year, the Latino Studies Conference. Every year for the next 3 years, there will be a Summer Institute offered in Chicago at UIC with a $3,000 stipend. The application deadline is January 31st, and the notification award is February 28th, with a maximum of 32 awards, 2 per Latino, Crossing Latinidades Consortium member institution. And then, here are the details on what the stipend supports, what the stipend covers, and what is not covered. And if we can go to the next one. The next slide, wanted to talk a little bit about eligibility. It would have to be students, graduate students who are pursuing a PhD in the humanities or humanistic social sciences, focusing on Latino Latinx studies in one of the 16 member institutions, planning to enroll in the same home institution during the following year in the same institution they're in, considering a career in academia at the early stages of pre-candidacy and pre-dissertation, meaning second or third year, nearing completion or having completed coursework and already beginning to think about their dissertation project, but they don't need to have a dissertation proposal defended or any of that. And that they're kind of beginning to develop some ideas, and that is something they can, those ideas they're developing are something they can share with their colleagues in the institute. They need to be willing to be in residence in Chicago. And we purposely made this, right before the Latino Studies Conference to make it sort of easier for people who are already planning to be in the Midwest, as well as for potential instructors. And then in addition to that 2-week period, these students who are selected would be participating in a 1-year mentorship program. They would be assigned a mentor who would meet with them once a month. I mean, that's the beauty of the consortium. It can be a mentor in another institution. And ideally, our subcommittee will be, doing that work of working with the students and with everyone here to think about potential mentors, and that would be good fits for our students. And the students would have to be able to participate in all the sessions. And there's also a professionalization program there are workshops that will be available throughout that year. So while the concentration of the institute is in that 2-week, there are opportunities for students that include not just the mentorship, but workshops that are going to help them, build skills and develop their careers, as well as, opportunities to be selected as research assistants in the RFP projects. If we can move on. So one of the things that I want to talk about a little bit is the selection process. So basically what we are doing at a central level, the subcommittee on the Summer Institute, is we're asking all the institutions to kind of send their recommendations of students with ranks. Now, while there are 2 slots per university. We're okay with you sending a list that has more than 2, maybe has 3, 4, 5 with a ranking, because there's always a possibility that another institution doesn't have 2, maybe only has 1, or somebody drops out. So we want to be able to fill all the spots and make sure that we know who would be next in line from each institution. And basically your institutions, ideally with the direction of a Latino studies program, there would be a selection committee that would be that would do a call, and that would be for applicants, and that would be selecting. Our role as a subcommittee, once we get your selections and your ranks, is only to review them to confirm that they meet eligibility requirements, and then kind of, make the final decision. But again, we assume that the hard work of basically selecting, the students in your institutions, ranking them, thinking about, reviewing applications, that all that is done already at your institution. We also want to, so that's one thing, the selection process. I already talked about the mentorship process. The 2-week curriculum, 2-week summer seminar I want to talk a little bit about. It is a 2-week curriculum taught by invited faculty, and kind of part of the framework of what we're going to do as I'm going to illustrate a little bit about the curriculum as it's being developed right now, would be to, for every area that is a focus, to be engaging in sort of foundational texts as well as innovations for each of the areas. So kind of really steeping the students in like some basic, kind of ways of thinking about a particular question, issue, debate, and then sort of kind of thinking about how it's been kind of rethought. What are the innovations, interruptions, disruptions, new ways of approaching something that has been foundational in Latino studies, but, has gone through, some important changes. Throughout these 2 weeks, there are also going to be methodological workshops that are emphasizing a couple of different kind of forms of thinking about methodological approaches. Of course, there's the traditional quantitative, qualitative, and of course we know that, and we're going to emphasize a lot on sort of, what those are, but we know students get that background. What we really want to focus on are things that are particularly salient, we think, for this comparative Latino humanities. One of the sort of like engaged community participatory research, and making sure that as we go along the Summer Institute, that we can provide examples of that, exercises on that, engage and bring in community voices and community actors in the Chicago area community, and sort of exemplify that and sort of how it can be done. And then comparative intersectional analysis, really thinking about comparison in comparative humanities in deep and intersectional and critical ways. So that's sort of another methodological angle that that our instructors would be focusing on. I'm just going to give you a very quick example. If we can go to the next slide. The curriculum, the 4 main areas of focus that I've been talking about would be probably, it's only 2 weeks, so there'd probably be, 2 areas that would be emphasized in week 1 and 2 in week 2. And one of them is defining Latinidades, mobility and migration, Latinx precarity, and critical consciousness and resistance. And each of these has sort of examples of particular areas, and I can send those details if people want them, but it is still in development. It is not in final form. But I'm going to show the first one that I think is really important, which is defining Latinidades. If we can see the next slide, because I'm using this to kind of think about the framework, right? If we think about the framework of sort of what is foundational kind of literature and perspectives, we can think about nation-bound analytic frameworks, some pan-Latino, pan-ethnic frameworks that have really, kind of helped to define the field. And then when we go into sort of thinking about innovative, we can think about sort of the different ways in which Latinidad has been interrogated and developed through either thinking about indigeneity, Afro-Latinidad, gender and sexuality, intersectionalism, transculturalism, intergroup relations, just as examples. It doesn't, what I'm trying to say is not all of this may be covered, because really instructors are going to have, limited amounts of time. And I believe it's better to cover some things more in depth than to try to get a huge scope. But these are examples of ways in which we could think about innovation, interrogation of sort of foundational literature. And I also have, Latinx movement, sound and performance, and how have those studies also, transformed the ways we can think about Latinidad. And so this is just one example. And then if we can move on to the next slide and just keep moving. These are mobility and migration themes. I'm not going to get into sort of the details of it. These are examples of what some of these areas could be that could be covered. And, again, traditional frameworks are migrant incorporation, but then we have sort of transborder, transnational globalization, global circuits, as kind of like examples of sort of developments that then have led us in new directions. And these, if we can go on to the next slide, Latinx precarity, for example, thinking about questions of language, politics, language justice, environmental sustainability, climate change, sort of those questions about labor, and how all these are, the reason the subcommittee thought these were so important. These are kind of really, the kind of the socioeconomic, foundation that is sort of interacting with everything that we're doing, whether it's identities, migration, mobility, or resistance, as is the next one. If we can think about the next, we can move to the next slide. This was one that took us a long time, because it's so important, but it subsumes so much, which is theorizing Latino subjectivities and resistance and contributions, right? And there are many voices in the room talking about what are different ways, different theoretical approaches to thinking about Latino subjectivities and resistance. And of course, we have, critical consciousness, transculturation, cultural citizenship, critical race perspectives. And so this is a kind of really one where we kind of really think about the different ways in which Latinos have engaged in resistance, the ways in which their subjectivities are sort of shaping, their not only their experiences, but their experiences of the communities they reside in, and so forth. So again, there other things could fit into here depending on who the instructor is. But the idea is that these 4 areas would be for, main anchors for this institute, and would really, I think, provide a, kind of important kind of theoretical and methodological foundations. If you can go to the next slide, that's where we kind of talk a little bit more about the methodological foundations that I think would then be make it a really interesting transition and prepare them for being part of an RFP that is about, deep comparative humanities, Latino studies, right? Thinking about Latinx communities, not only in terms of like comparing people of different national origin or people from different national origin in different locations, but comparing Latino communities within their urban or rural settings, among different communities, their relationships, their intra-relationships across Latinos, comparing trans-regional, what is going on in different regions, what is the commonality between Latinos, for example, who are engaging in narratives around climate change, whether it be in Arizona, California, or Chicago, whether it's about heat or water, or whatever that is, like what are some of the kind of ties and connections and interconnections that we can make. That's one methodology that, as I said, we really are putting a lot of focus on. And then that community-based and action-driven learning projects and partnerships that will be really important, not only for students and their future research, but because part of the RFP, as Nena explained earlier, does ask for a very kind of public humanities, community connected outcome, right? Like how can you share out, involve, engage, act with community, and in a way that makes your project also public and accessible. and in addition to whatever scholarship you are planning on getting published. And I think that's it for me, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm going to invite Cynthia, who will be moderating the Q&A session.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a good number of questions, and I'll start with a question for Nena. This is from Jorge Duani. How do you define operationally humanistic perspectives in the social sciences? Is it a question of using qualitative methods such as interviews, oral histories, or archival research?
Okay, Jorge, this is like the $1 million question. I think that the perspective in a certain sense, and we can, sort of put out a lot of examples. I don't think it's just that the methods, but there's, I think an intention here that this is about culture, and it is about, development of culture, understanding of the historical. And there's lots of fields, obviously, that move in that direction, including some traditional social sciences. Amalia and I are both political scientists. Please do not hold that against us. And I know that you're a sociologist and have worked a lot with culture. I think that it would be helpful as we move forward to really try to pull together a very broad definition. I think the Academy of Arts and Culture has a very broad definition that may be helpful. I think, remember that these proposals will be vetted through panels of humanists and people involved in the humanities from a social science perspective. So that will be the community of peers, in a certain sense, that will be looking at the work. So perhaps we can make a commitment to at least float some general definitions of exactly what this means. I hate to be that vague, but hopefully that at least goes in the direction of answering your question.
Thank you, Nena. And then also from Jorge Duani, for you, how much is the total budget for each one of the 3 institutions applying for the research working group? Is it $310,000 for each of the 2 years of the grant? And does that include the 3 PhD dissertation fellowships?
Yes, it does include, and remember, it's 2 years, because the research working groups will be funded for year 2 and 3 of the grant, not the first year. They will start basically towards the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall. And it does, the 310,000 does include the graduate research assistants. They will, so 100,000 is what you will have in terms of the actual spending money, for meetings, for experts, for transcriptions, et cetera. There's a long list of things that are fundable that we will include in the call for proposals. And it also includes the $30,000 of $10,000 each for the 3 faculty coming from the 3 universities. There was one more thing. Oh, and then the stipend. Actually, we did not, I mean, the course release. We didn't really calculate that, because that's, institutions do this it varies across institutions, but there will be that one course that will be paid, or 2 courses per PI that will be paid by your home institution.
Thank you. Okay, here's one for Amalia. Amalia, Tuti asks, are the working groups independent of the Summer Institute?
Are the working groups independent of the Summer Institutes? I guess they are. I mean, it's not. So I don't know exactly what the detail of the question is. I mean, I think that the idea of the Summer Institute is in the thing. This is a pathway program in many ways, and the idea is that there is a Summer Institute for graduate students, but it's also the RFPs are also really important an exciting opportunity to sort of continue to mentor and develop those graduate students through integrating them into a research project. So we definitely do want to make sure that those students are, some of the candidates for these RA-ships. And, we would make sure that we understand and have a good knowledge and can share that knowledge of who are those students and what are their interests and how they can contribute to people's projects. And, because the RFP doesn't start for another year, it could be that if people already know students that they think they may want to think about, either in their institution or something else, that is an opportunity to really motivate them to take the Summer Institute, right? Like, you are exactly the kind of person who would be great in this project, right? Or but the question is like, would people be able to create, to just like have any students they want and not recruit, not have, the Summer Institute students, which is a question I think we've been getting. I think that's not the spirit of this project. The spirit of this project would be that, the first choice would be the students who are in this project. Having said that, I know that, sometimes we end up with things that happen that, somebody drops out of something or something, it's kind of really logistically very complicated, and we can consider those cases, but that is the spirit of this. I don't know, Nena, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, no, I think it's linked. They're linked. I mean, I would
Yeah.
say they're independent, but they're linked because the research working groups, from the perspective of the training of graduate students, are an opportunity for them to continue in the field and working on research beyond their own particular work.
Okay, thank you. And this is for Nena. Irene Vasquez asks, should institutions participate in only one research cluster? Is it possible for faculty from one campus to propose more than one cluster? Is it more advantageous for one campus to propose only one?
I think that, again, that's something that we would have to contemplate. I mean, at the end, again, the spirit, and this is very hard to sort of institutionalize in a process, is that this be spread across the consortium, okay? So there will be at least as we go through the proposals and the vetting process, that will be one, I think, of the many criteria that will be looked at. I think that there in one institution, I mean, I know already at UIC, there are people thinking about working on one project and there are other people thinking on other projects. They will, I mean, if I can sort of combine two questions, there will be only one PI nominally, okay, to the extent that the distribution of the monies from UIC need to go to one institution, right? But that does not mean that there cannot be, co-PIs in the spirit of the grant itself.
Thank you. And then Irene, actually, this is Rosa Cabrera's questions. So there's a few. The first one is for Nena. Is there room for non-tenure line faculty to participate in a research working group? And then are the selected research working groups responsible for recruiting their 6 PhD students according to the group research topic? And would this be 2 students from each institution?
Okay, let's go with the first one. I'm sorry, I was trying to write them down. There can be participation of people that are non-tenured. The PIs need to be on a tenure track. So for people who are not on a tenure track, they can be part of the group. Okay, in terms of the recruitment of the students, I think the first phase here, and this is what I think all of us need to focus on more urgently, is the recruitment of students for the Summer Institute. If you have students who you would like to work with, I think that this is a way of trying to encourage them to apply for the Summer Institute. At the end, the pool that will be matched with the research working groups will come from those who have gone to the Summer Institute. So there'll be some kind of process for matching students with the actual working groups. There was a third component to the question.
Yeah, it was, and would these two students, it was around the 6 PhD students according to the group research topic, and would these two students from each institution be from?
Yes, okay, so in this, the Summer Institute, we will be, basically, there will be 32 students, 2 from each institution. So that will be the pool that then is available to the research working groups in order to have these students work with the, and those students will work for 1 year. There'll be another Summer Institute, and then there'll be another pool for the second year.
But I think the question might be asking something that I think it's not actually that. So if the question is asking if you have 3 faculty from different institutions, do the 2 students, are they coming from each of the institutions? It doesn't have to be that way. That it can fall that way, but it doesn't have to be, because it's about the interest of the students and who's done the Summer Institute.
Right.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And this question is for you, Nena, from Juan Poblete. Are multiple non-related applications from faculty in the same campuses allowed? Campus or campuses allowed?
Yes, I mean, I think, again, the groups are forming in different ways, right? And so the answer is yes.
These is for you, Nena, from Xochitl Vada. The PIs and co-PIs must be from the 16 consortium, question mark. In other words, can we invite co-PIs from non-consortium universities? And then also ask, how can we know who may be interested in partnering with us for submitting a proposal? How can we know who is attending this webinar to network?
Okay, good question, Sochi. Yes, the PIs need to be from the consortium. This grant is to, further the field, train graduate students, but it is also to strengthen the consortium, and hopefully we will be growing the consortium as well. So the PIs need to be in part, that's the commitment for the course buyout is within the context of the consortium, as is the distribution of the monies. But other people obviously can be part of research working groups as well. And
how do we know? How do they know who's?
Oh, I think that, Olga, I think I'm gonna give you that one.
You're muted.
Sorry. Okay, we do have a directory of humanities faculty and humanistic social science faculty in the 16 universities, and we will be very happy to share them with you.
Thank you. Okay, Irene Vasquez, this is for Nena. Is it the responsibility of the PI to recruit the graduate research assistantships, or are they recruited through the central recruitment process? Will you consider co-PIs, and is the 70K research budget minus summer stipend to be used across both years?
Okay, I don't understand the last part of it.
They're asking about the 70,000 research budget.
It's 100,000. The 100,000?
Yeah, is it to be used across both years?
Yes, the 100,000, the 310 is for 2 years. So the 100,000, which is the specific amount for research itself, is for 2 years. And in terms of the recruitment, the recruitment will happen. That's why the recruitment to the Summer Institute is so important, is because that's the pool that will from which the research working groups can match with graduate students.
Thank you. And this is for Amalia. Amalia, how rigid is a pre-candidacy requirement? For example, student completing exams but does not yet have dissertation proposal approved, question mark. And then in combination with this one, David Taylor asks if MFA being a terminal degree in many areas that are in alignment with this program, can the program accommodate terminal degrees rather than only PhDs?
Okay, well, I'll take the second one first. Yes, I mean, MFAs are terminal degrees in some fields. So to the extent that we are encouraging students who are interested in academia, and if they have an MFA in a field that's what the terminal degree is, they would be eligible for the Summer Institute. In terms of the first one, I wasn't super clear on the question. I was thinking that maybe it's a question about somebody who's already defended a proposal. And I'm going to say a little bit about the logic of this model. I mean, it comes from years, and then I can expand more of, working with Ellen, with IUPLR and now UIC around students who are more advanced, and sort of so that program has been very successful. But I think one of the challenges that we see in general in Latinos completing graduate degrees is that we need to work earlier. We need to make sure that that students are able to that we're able to retain students in graduate school for them to succeed, and that perhaps this project is based on this notion that earlier exposure to some of this exciting research, methodological and theoretical connections and mentorship and engagement with faculty who may not be in their institutions but are doing exactly the kind of work students are interested in might make a difference in keeping them in the field. So I think that's why we came up with this. I think frankly every program is different. So if somebody is already very well advanced into their dissertation project, I don't think they're the right candidates for this particular Summer Institute, given sort of what we're operating on. If someone is really early on and really it still could greatly benefit from this, even if they've already started thinking about their dissertation, I mean, I think that's fine. So I think we'd have to kind of deal with case by case to see, so I would hate for somebody who's like, maybe they defended a proposal, but that's all they've done, and they really are still have their whole project ahead of them and could still greatly benefit from this. I would hate to have that person not apply if in fact that person is a great fit for this Summer Institute. Nina, does that match what you're thinking?
I think, again, I mean, all rules are made to be broken, right? With exceptions. And I think that the spirit here is certain flexibility within the context of pretty laser focus on a particular stage of development. And we know that not every student goes through a linear process here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Nena, this question is for you from Adriana Reyes. It is, do you recommend research proposals that foster the collaboration between faculty and research assistants from 3 different universities? Is it possible to develop a proposal that includes the multidisciplinary collaboration of faculty from different departments within the same university?
Okay, the one criteria that we are very committed to is that 3 institutions and preferably 3 regions are involved in developing the project. The intention here is that this is also an intellectual project, and creating a scaffolding that allows for comparative work is something that we have not really had in any kind of sustained and supported way in Latino studies. I mean, we've had a lot of support for local work. We've had even support for transnational work. Particularly our universities, because they are public, have a certain commitment to the public, okay? And these are states. And so therefore we see that also having an impact. We're trying to break that. We're trying to create a possibility where the work is being thought of from a comparative perspective from regions. So that's the spirit of this particular one. So a project coming from 3 disciplines in a university would not meet the criteria.
Thank you, Nena. Amalia, this one is for you. It's just asking for clarification on grad student applications if they're due on just confirming that they're due on January 31st. And then wondering that they should probably in the institution get them well before the 31st so they can review and rank them. And then asking how that will be submitted? Is there an email where those go to?
I'm gonna let Olga answer that.
We do have the date of January 31st as the deadline for submissions to your center. I will be contacting you the first days of February to collect the PDFs. We're asking the applicants to submit all the materials in one PDF, and also your notes on the rankings, and we will be communicating throughout in terms of how they fit the eligibility, or if we have any other questions, and then come up with the final list. We listed, and I will list it again in the chat, our email address in which you can send, but basically it will be me contacting the different centers, requesting this information and having this dialogue. And this will not be happening only at that time, but throughout January, I will be just making myself available just to make sure if there are any other questions or if there are any issues, or just to make sure that we make this process very smooth.
Thank you, Olga. And also, Olga, related to that, Maria Casas asks, would you develop informational and advertising materials that we can disseminate, or will we have to create those materials for our own individual institutions?
We are actually in the process of designing 2 flyers that can be used as a JPEGs or printed on paper for the promotion of the 2 programs. So we will be sharing those with you, and in particularly for the Summer Institute, because each center or your institution will be the contact, we will tailor them and make them add that information to your specific flyer and send it to you.
Thank you, Olga. This question is for Nena. Nena, Stephanie is asking, several of us have been brought into this initiative who work outside of the United States. Can the research groups applying to these grants include research outside the US, or would members need to expand into new research with Latinx communities in the US? Also, is there already a mechanism in place for us to connect to evolving working groups across institutions, or bring others in from other institutions?
Okay, on the first one, the research, the focus is Latinx. So the research itself is in the United States. It does not mean that your working group can't have researchers from other countries, or that there may be aspects of what it is that you're looking at that also have an international dimension to it. Because that is sort of the nature of Latino studies. And in terms of, I think that's the answer, right? Was there another? Yeah. Oh, if there's going to be a way of I think, that, Olga, I think this goes back to you and the portal. Is there a way of sort of having people be able to connect with ongoing, you mean the development, I'm assuming the development of research projects?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And this is a clarification request from Tuti. Please clarify the funding for the pre-dissertation research fellows as part of the working group program. These are for pre-dissertation graduate students?
Yes, there will be this. There's 10 working groups, right? And each one will have 6 research assistants, 3-year 1, 3-year 2. These research assistants will be paid a salary of or a stipend of I think it's $30,000. So this, instead of being a TA at your university, this particular student will be an RA for a research working group.
Thank you. And this question is for you, Nena. Anita is asking a clarification. She would like a clarification about the regional diversity. Do you mean between different states, or is there a preference for regional diversity across the country? Example, not all universities from the Southwest, question mark?
Again, I think that if we think about where Latino studies is right now, we're really thinking about regions. Regions are not necessarily just defined by states, okay? I think they're defined by, larger, sort of socio-ecosystems. And so, again, as you think about your work, think about, it could be across, I mean, there could be, I don't know, something on urban culture or urban material culture, let's say, that looks at, New York City, Chicago, and LA, okay? Or there could be, comparative art histories or comparative soundscapes, right? That are looking at, San Antonio, Tucson, and something else, okay? So I think that it's not just a state thing, but it's rather thinking through regions. And we know that the Southwest is the big region, and there's a lot of comparative work that can occur within just the Southwest. We'd hope that some of it would also go across these regions that have tended to define, in a certain sense, what our communities are, right? I mean, it's very Northeast, this and that and the other. So being able to cut through those regions that have their own sets of, ways of thinking about where Latinos are and how they've evolved, and sort of just the scholarship in those areas, taking an opportunity to take your research out of there and be able to work with people who are in a completely different region.
Thank you, Nena. And just for our attendees, if you are posting your question in the Q&A, I'm going to get to those last. I'm doing the chat questions first, and then the Q&A questions. So this question is from Stephanie. Nena, is there a max number of faculty involved from each university, or should it be one from each of the three?
The one from each of the three is for the purposes of the summer stipend, but there can be multiple faculty. I mean, you've got a budget, and that budget is $100,000 besides the rest in terms of research working group, I mean, of the RAs. So to the extent that if there are other people, if it fits into your budget, I mean, I don't think we have a specific number or limit on how many faculty can be involved. That would be up to you and the proposal in terms of the budget to think through the viability, right, of the number of people that you feel can be funded through the specific budget that is allocated.
Thank you. We are reaching, it's almost time to end our webinar. So if we don't get to your questions, we will, Olga provided an email where you can email your questions and we will respond via email. So we're gonna take just a few more. Amalia, a couple folks in the chat, including Valerie and somebody else, just raised a concern about the January 31st deadline. They say we are already in finals at UNC and the students do not return to campus until after the MLK holiday. Can we push the deadline back a couple weeks?
Olga?
Yes, I think so. Absolutely. I read the note and I think, yes, that makes a lot of sense. And I know Christian also supports this request. That will be February 15. And if we're a little bit late replying, maybe we can just push it and compress it to March 1st or the first week of March, just to have the selection.
Great.
Thank you. And this question is maybe Olga for you. How will you be establishing the portal? Will this be developed and available as a research working group advance their investigations or after the completion of their investigations? Can you speak more about the Crossing Latinidades portal scope, functionality, usability for consortial members? Will it be up and running by the year 1 research working group period? Thank you, Michelle Hall-Kels.
Okay, we are at this very moment working on developing it. We're starting very small, just to make sure that we have the basics, but we will be adding the different components week by week, month by month. And absolutely, it will be functional the first in September or in August when the working groups will start their work. And we will be able to provide the intranet and other devices. Even if you have suggestions, we'll be very open to take your suggestions and try to develop it as part of the portal. Amalia, I think that you can, in terms of the vision for the portal, you can add more to it.
I think that's a good reflection. I mean, I do think we really do have visions of having this portal be a site where when we talk about community, you know, public humanities and community engaged research, as well as possibilities for doing programming that will be also, you know, interesting and engaging for undergraduates. I think we do see the portal as a site, and we invite the groups, we invite all scholars, and especially also the funded RFPs groups to, you know, help us engage imaginatively in what we could do in this portal that would really, you know, enable us to build a community of students and scholars.
Okay, one more question from Rosa, and then I'm gonna move to the Q&A. How are you all feeling? Should we just do like a couple more questions? Do you all feel you want, there's 7 in the Q&A. Do you all want to get through all of them? Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Rosa is asking, will the student, and it's for Nena, will the students' research interests assigned to a research working group have to match the research topic of the working group?
No, I mean, I think again, think about the research working groups as an opportunity for them to grow their skills. And some of them, hopefully, they will be doing work on that, but that's not a requirement.
Thank you, Nena. All right, moving on to the Q&A. Justin Perez is asking, are specific graduate students identified in the working group proposal prior to the submission or after conclusion of the Summer Institute?
It'll have to be after the conclusion because we're basically graduating them in June and the proposals will be due beforehand.
Thank you. And I see, Nena, you started typing an answer to Sochi's question. She
Right.
says, I am a professor who works in a unit without a PhD program. How can I assign students to my project considering that I don't have access to PhD students? Am I excluded from the eligibility due to this fact?
Sochi Bada, of course you're not excluded. There, you do have PhD students. The program has a graduate concentration and they can be students from other departments. And as you know, we work with students throughout all various departments and many of them are humanities. So no,
And they
you're
can
not
also be
excluded.
from other institutions. That's part of the beauty of the consortium.
Right.
Thank you. And an anonymous attendee says, are course releases only for the leading PI or for all co-PIs, faculty collaborators involved? Question mark.
Okay, the universities have made a commitment, the chancellors have made a commitment to give a course release, 2 courses per 1 person per institution. So it will only be for the 3 principals of the working group.
Okay, Nadia Flores asks, are the graduate students expected to write their dissertations out of the project for which they become an RA, or their involvement in the projects would be aside from their dissertation work?
I think that's probably the same question that Rosa generally was asking. No, they don't. We hope that they do come in through the Summer Institute and get an idea because there will be a component of them developing at least, you know, an outline to a proposal, but that's not a requirement. We think this will be an opportunity for them, right? But not necessarily a requirement.
Okay, thank you. I think that we're good on questions. Other questions have been answered in the chat. We have shared our email and the recording in PowerPoint. I don't know, are we sharing the PowerPoint? Somebody's wondering if we're sharing the PowerPoint or just the recording. I think the recording is fine. those will be available. So yeah, I don't see any other questions. So I think I'll check the chat one more time. Okay, cool. I think we're good.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we're very excited. We're very excited, and it will be your work and the work of your students and the promotion of this that will make a success. So, and thank you, Kyle, for giving us all the Zoom
And thank
technology.
you, Cindy, for kick-ass moderation.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you all. So
Bye.
we come to the end of the session. Thank you so much for attending. Any questions, please contact us and we will be happy to work with you.